Like whenever the trade presents itself, it's good. It's just we do a really good job of doing two trades in a day, so it helps a lot. So, all right, so I think it's 8:05. I think everybody's here that needs to be here. So we'll get started. And I think it's going to be a cool one here today too. All our webinars are cool because they're packed with a lot of knowledge, and we do it for free, which is amazing too. So you guys got to be showing some love for that, and of course invite people that you guys think can benefit the chat room and benefit from being in the chat room and learning from us and so on. So if you guys think you know somebody like that, please send them an invite. It'll help grow the community and it'll be more fun uh, with your friends and your family being here, you guys doing it together, it'll be much easier. Okay. All right, let's get started. So the reason why I wanted to get into the the trading using data-driven trading algo, right? The reason why this is the title and not that learn our strategies is simply because I am a person and a human just like you guys, okay? I need for me to be able to see stuff visually first, and then, for them to register in my head. Like, for instance, if I see a strategy and it's just on plain old charts, I personally don't think that I'd be able to see that, strategy over and over again. Like some people are very good with that, but for me personally, I need something to stand out, right? I need some sort of resistance to stand out. I need some sort of a pattern to stand out. I need some sort of EMAs behaving the same way in order for me to realize that this pattern happened a week ago. Okay. So if that pattern repeats itself and there isn't maybe two or three things that are flickering and going off and is like, okay, this is the same pattern a week ago, or this is the same pattern a year ago, my brain won't register, right? Looking at plain charts, it will not help. I'm really sorry. So what I did was I did it this way. I created, right? Honestly, this is like I personally believe this. Okay, everybody says this, right? You guys hear all of these people talk about this and say this, but I genuinely do believe we have the best indicator, and not the reason that it's the most advanced indicator or it's the craziest indicator. No, it works off of price action and all the strategies that aren't bullshit. Like for instance, like there are indicators online that you pay for and people literally like it's only like buy and sell and you do not, right? Like you have no idea why is it giving you a signal? What's the reason for it giving you a signal or what's going on in the back end, okay? This indicator is designed to show you everything, right, that you see. Literally, simply, like you see everything that you need, right? So we're going to go over that, but to get the precise entries and exits, one thing I want you guys to do, please go turn on the notifications, click on the data-driven trading, chat rooms, the name and Discord, go into notifications, right? Turn on all messages or the chat room that you guys want to get receive notifications from. So turn that on so that you guys are always up to date with any announcements or anything that you need to know about the indicator or you need to know about the chat room. So always try to stay up to date, okay? And remember, you don't have to have the exact precise entries, but it is really, really cool if you guys make sure that you guys follow along. This is why I always recommend having an indicator or watching the charts by yourself. If you guys have jobs, right, it's fine. Okay. This is why we're here. Like, if you guys didn't remember, I told you Nick used to trade off of his phone until I very recently got him to trade off of a computer, right? And it's just worked for him and it was good. He was doing that for like a year until he finally changed like 2 months ago. So, uh, worked for him, good. If it works for you, that's amazing. But I personally think if you can watch the charts, even on your phone, it's amazing, right? It's not really difficult. Once you get used to it, you can open up the options. You guys see me, like go check the free chat out and you will see that there's so many times when I go into the free chat and I just post a screenshot of my phone. Like you guys will see it's a picture of the algo on the phone device. It's not on computer. So like it's the same algo same charts that I use on the phone and the computers. So let's say I'm doing something, right? I'm driving somewhere. The other day I was driving and I was literally watching the chart for QQQ, and then I had a split tab open with the options. I was paying attention to I was able to see everything that I'd be able to see on my computer. It's just I wasn't able to pay attention to SPY. I wasn't able to pay attention to, other like NVIDIA and so on, right? So because of that, um, I wasn't, sorry, what was that? But because of that, I wasn't able to pay attention to 50 different things, but I was able to pay attention to what I needed, right? So this is why it's important to understand that, okay, if you're using somebody's strategy, follow along with them, right? This is why I always recommend use the algo, man. Like you'll make your money back times 10 if you learn how to use it. And, you guys will see through this, and then we have a trial for you guys as well, right? So, okay. So, one, one thing that we always recommend is remember, if you guys want to follow along with our trend, like signals or trends and so on, this is right before we get into the strategies and so on. Please try to make sure that you are following along with the trend. Like for instance, if we see a uptrend going on QQQ, just remember that more than likely we will never take a short trade on a uptrend like this. Simple. Okay? Right? On a downtrend like this, we will never take a bull trade. Why? Well, there are only certain days where you might be able to, dip buy calls while the stock is going down because there is sport in order for it to, play out. So for everybody that's going to be using the algo, that's going to be using the charts to look at the way, basically kind of trade the way we trade every day, always remember we always trade with the trend, and it works out very, very crazy in our favor because you guys seen how accurate our signals are and how big they pay, right? Because once these options open up, man, they go insane. Okay. They go insane. And so always remember, we're always going to trade with the trend. If the trend is bullish, right, in pre-market, we're going to probably take the trade bullish, like long, right? So we're going to buy calls. If the trend is bearish and it's super bearish, we might wait until the trend becomes bullish and then take a trade because I hate buying puts. But the last week, if you guys remember, we bought puts and we killed it. Like it's insane. So as day traders, we will do what needs to be done. But just remember, like sometimes we don't want to be, buying, puts too much because the normal trend of the market is what? Bullish. Simple. So now, let's get into it. What does the indicator, or just in general, like what do we trade with, right? So remember, like I explained that to you guys. If you guys go check out some of our videos, guys, from like years ago, like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, there's videos. I might have made them private, but because they were, a little corny, whatever. But if there is, I'll make it available for you guys. I've been using the same indicator, same strategy for the past now almost, I would say, 7 to 8 years, right? Once I made this, I was like, okay, I'm never going back. Very important. Why? Well, because if you perfect the one strategy that you can get good at and not jump one, two, three, four, five, six, like if you can just perfect the same thing, like remember, like in trading, if you're losing, somebody else is winning. So jump on their team, right? Use the indicator that's not working for you and just do the opposite, right? This is why it's important to use one indicator so you can get all of the, ups and the downs like about the indicator. And then over time, you get better, entries and better exits. Okay. Right. And remember, our trades are also insane because of this. I don't think anybody else uses option charts the way I've been using option charts. Go look at our TikToks from like literally 6, 7 years ago. First person on TikTok, first person on Instagram, first person on YouTube, eh, always used option charts when the option charts weren't even a thing. Nobody even knew about option charts. This is how old our community is, honestly. And we had the same indicator. We used to use it on Thinkorswim because Thinkorswim was the only one that allowed it. Okay. Nobody else allowed option charts. right? And if they did interactive, it was probably shitty, wasn't good looking. The only one that allowed it was Thinkorswim, and their option charts were insane, right? Because you could put the same indicator that we do have right now on the option charts and trade the same way. So we've been using the same strategies forever. So this is why it's important to trade the same strategies because you can get really good at it, right? If you guys have been in the chat room, you guys know why we're so good. Like, and you guys wonder why? Because of this, because we put so much time into the same strategy, right? So there are five main different strategies that I trade with every single day. Like these are the five strategies that come into play anytime I take a trade. It's always one of these things, right, that's giving me a signal, and two or three of them are confirming that signal, right? So sometimes it might be the EMAs and the VWAP. The stock is above the EMAs and the VWAP, it's sporting the 15-minute 9 EMA, right? To give you guys an example, and the VWAP. Okay. And then the momentum on the indicator is confirming that trend, right? The trend line is being broken. So three things are confirming it, then you take the trade, right? It's the same thing with the momentum, same thing with the trend lines, right? You'll have other different strategies here on these five strategies list that will confirm with you the trend, the confirm with you the trade, right? And this is why it's important to learn more than one because remember, if you're wrong, on like one, like let's say like some of these strategies may only have a win percentage of 70%, right? If you use them alone. But if you can confirm with another strategy, the win rate might go up to 80%, right? And if you confirm with another one, it might go up to 85, and now you're inching closer to that 100%. It'll never happen, okay? Because sometimes it's not even the strategy, just your mind, right? So if you can, say this and write it on a piece of paper and sign it for me, like to say that, yo, my mind is never gonna, go against me. And like, I'll be like, yo, okay, then you have a 90% winning strategy. Just use this strategy. But sometimes it's just our head, right? Sometimes we take trades that we don't need to be taking. And, it ends up, you know, beating us up. So remember, these are the five, right, that I use every day. So we're going to go over in detail on all of these. So one, we use the EMAs and the VWAP. Okay. Second one is momentum indicator, right? As you guys see, the buy and the sell signal. It's important as well. And you guys will see why. Trend lines and the patterns we use as well. Very important as well. You guys can see how these trend lines kind of breaking comes into effect of uh, comes into effect of, giving you guys huge breakout moves, right? And then, of course, support and resistances, right? Zones, supply and demand zones, it's the same thing, right? And we use also fibs, right? Fib is a math tool, which basically gives you the most accurate, I would say, out of everything, levels on the chart. And if you guys have a good Fibonacci tool that creates the fib for yourself, right? Without you having to do anything about it, guess what's going to happen, right? Guess what's going to happen? That's going to make it where you're going to have no human error, right? And guess what? Once you have no human error, fibs are going to be even better. So this is why fibs are very important. Different time frames, gaps, okay? A lot of people always teach you about SPX daily gap, QQQ daily gap, the gaps that are left for the next day. Are they going to go fill, right? I think bullshit. You know why? Because remember, everybody else is looking at it. Go do the gap fill strategy, right? Give it a go back test it, and you guys will see it. It'll be like 65% win rate. Okay? Why do we have a crazy win rate strategy with gaps? Because we don't look at the same gaps that everybody else looks at. We look at different gaps. And we can go over that as well. And so remember, we're not trying to do what everybody else is doing because remember, if a 3-year-old kid can get up and be like, yo, okay, on YouTube, I've learned this gap fill strategy, right? It, like if everybody can do that, like it's just so easy, right? Like the win rate's there for sure. I've seen it, believe me. Might be 60%, 65%, but it's not good enough. A lot of people can't even manage a 85% win rate strategy and come out green. Do you think they're going to be able to do that when it's a 60 65% or 55% win rate. So just saying. And then also remember, you don't need to be good at all of these, right? To be a perfect trader. Okay. You can get good at one or two of these and use them every single day. Why do you need more than one? Simple. Look, today, for instance, let's say that there is no trend line breaks or a pattern that is forming. All you're getting is just a straight shooting up move. It would help you to know a momentum, have a momentum indicator that gives you a buy signal to be able to take a trade that day and then ride the trade up, right? If you only had a triangle break or a pattern strategy or a trend line break strategy, it might not give you a good entry. You guys get the point? Like, this is how we're able to find a trade every day and, one time in the morning and one time in the afternoon because in the back of my head, there's so many different strategies that confirm, okay, is there a trade going on below the EMAs? Okay, might be a good trade still. Is the momentum confirming it, right? Trend line's also saying a down trade. It might work out. This is how you're able to trade consistently every day and actually have winning trades, right? You don't have to trade every day. So when you learn first and you're like a beginner trader, this is why I always recommend trade less as possible. You can trade one time in a day, it's fine. Okay. And even if you can't find a trade today, and let's say, you only know the trend line break strategy, you only use the trend line break strategy every day, right? And let's say, might be a trade today with the trend line break. Tomorrow there might not be a trade. Just sit out on that day. It's okay, right? And there might be a trade Wednesday. If there is, good. If there isn't, sit out. That's fine. But the goal is to learn, the regular price action strategies that we have mentioned here because go ask the best of the best traders, guys. None of them will ever complain about any of these strategies. Who doesn't use EMAs? Who doesn't use the momentum indicators? Who doesn't use trend lines and patterns? Who doesn't use sport and zones and fibs? Who doesn't use this, right? And who doesn't use gaps? All of these are general strategies that we can perfect, and I bet you hedge funds even will agree with it, right? And you can look at some of the best traders in the world. I bet you right now they won't ever look at this list and be like, nah, this guy is just bullshitting. He has no idea what he's talking about, right? And if somebody does say that, I promise you they don't know what they're talking about because we're gonna go over how some of these things, like people really, like there's one strategy in here that I've seen these, like like a 15-year-old kid on Instagram make a reel about, or like a 18-year-old kid or a 21-year-old millionaire trader, right? Because it's that easy for them to just jump on and talk BS and people actually believe it. But I'll show you guys what that strategy is, and it's one of the best strategies out there, right? It's my favorite strategy, actually. So we're gonna go over that. But what second here, guys. Try to stay on mute, please. What EMAs do we use? Okay, so these are the list of the EMAs that you guys will see me use every day. Okay, so we use the 9 EMA, right, for the shorter time frame. So not for the shorter time frame, but for usually, good sport or a good stop loss for the, like something to, give us a better kind of idea of a trend, right? Usually the 9 EMA on the 5 minute and the 15 minute, very, very strong sport. So it's always a good idea to keep that in mind, right? Because remember, the 9 EMA on the 1 minute is right? The 9 EMA on the 15 minute is the 50 EMA on the 1 minute. So this is why we have the 50, right, EMA on the 1 minute chart because that's basically the 9 EMA on the 15 minute. So if you guys look at the math behind the EMAs, you guys will understand like the 200 EMA on 1 minute is the 50 EMA on the 5 minute, right? So some of the stuff like this, right, that you need to kind of learn that these all work together to basically show you like so you don't have to switch between charts, right? So sometimes when I'm trading off the 1 minute chart, I really very, very strongly pay attention to the 50 EMA because I know, well, that's the 9 EMA on the 15-minute chart. That's where the pullback can be, and that might be a amazing and great entry, right? So remember, all of this works together, and you need to learn the details on what you're using and why you're using it. Remember, anybody can have EMAs on their chart and just say BS and be like, yo, okay, like I'm using this like because everybody else uses it. No. You need to understand the inside of it, right? The VWAP we use because everybody uses it. Simple. We need to know what everybody's using. That's why we use the VWAP. Okay. But why do we use all of them, right? Not all of them can have the same reason that, oh, okay, everybody uses the 9 EMA. Why does everybody use the 9? The 9 EMA works really, really good on bigger time frames. You cannot use the 9 EMA on 1 minute time frame, right? When the trend is very, very strong, then you can use the 9 EMA on 1 minute for stops for your, runners. Okay. So they all come into effect, but the only way you get good at using all of this is how? By practicing over and over and over and over again. And how do you do that? You stick with the same strategy. You need to learn why you're using these. What's the idea behind using the 50? What's the idea using the 200? Because the main charts that I use is 1 minute, 5 minute, 15 minute, right? So if I use, let's say 33 EMA, I don't know what 33 is going to be on 5 minute or 1 minute, but I know if I use the 50 EMA on the 1 minute, it's going to be the 9 EMA on the 15 minute, right? So it basically kind of it helps you, really, really good by, um, you know, uh, by giving you an idea of what the other time frames are telling you, right? So this is why we use the EMAs, and these are the EMA lists that we use. So you guys can add this if you guys don't want to, even be have the indicator, but this is just the EMAs, okay? So you guys always ask, so this is we're giving you guys the list. So the 50, so the purple one, as you guys see here, is the 200. 50 is the yellow one. 9 EMA is the blue line that's following along with the trend. And the VWAP is the dashed white line that's coming in. Look right there, right? And look what happens when the option, right, sports the 50, goes and rejects what, right? The 200 pulls back a little bit. Why? Well, because the 200 might be the 9 EMA on 3 minute, 4 minute, or 5 minute, right? And then the same thing with the VWAP, right? We hit the VWAP and we resist. We know that everybody's buying or selling above or below the VWAP. Same thing on the options. Everybody's buying, selling below or above the VWAP. You need to know this. If the VWAP is coming up at $1, right, and your target is 115, would you give back 60 cents of profit for extra 10 cents? No. It's not worth it, guys. This is why you need to pay attention where the VWAP is. So you take profit at 107, right? At least maybe 80% off. And then the rest of the 20%, if it pulls back, that's fine. You can close out. Or the 20% can go to the next target, which might be 115 or higher, right? So you need to trade smartly and know where resistances is and the EMAs are so that you can take profit or take a trade above certain EMAs and once they show you that there's bullish momentum. Okay. So the momentum indicator, right? It does one simple thing for you. Okay. Why do you need a momentum indicator, guys? Simple. There's a lot of times market just goes sideways. Okay. That's when you need to know, okay, is there volatility on the market or not? Okay. There's two ways you can tell, right? One is if, for instance, the range of the option is, let's say, $1, okay, throughout the whole day. And then in the last 5, 10 minutes, the range of the options now has become, so meaning like, for instance, here, right, to give you an example, look how slowly these options were moving down from 70 cents, right, to 50 cents, 40 cents. Look how much time it took from 45 all the way till 10:30. And then just in 15 minutes, we went from 22 cents all the way up to $2, right? 10x basically. Okay. So how do we do that and why do we do that? Right? That's because of volatility. So when the indicator gives you a good signal on the buy and the sell, so what happens is you don't have to take the first initial trade. But I bet you one thing that if it gives you a clean signal the first time like this, it will give you 80, 90% of the time a clean signal again. Why? Well, because the volatility is there. The same trader that shorted the, options from 95 cents and is slowly like, look how hardly these options want to move up. Look, they come down to this sport, they pop back up, they try to break this trend line, but they can't because they don't have power. They want to go fill this gap, but they can't because the option market maker is selling, 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 selling. He's forcing the option down. So what happens when new option, sellers come in at 20 cents because they think that, oh, this option is too far out of the money. I'm gonna win 99% of the time. So they start shorting it. And guess what happens? They get short squeezed, right? So usually you need some sort of a momentum indicator to tell you that there is volatility in the market, and you need to be able to look at it, right? If the option signal for the last signal is 30 cents, then the next signals can be at least 30 cents of profit or more, right? But if the signal is is like a sell signal here and then it gives you a buy, then it gives you sell, gives you buy, gives you sell, and it's just going sideways, you need to look at that and be like, I can't trade this because there's no volatility. If it's giving me a sell signal of 2 cents, more than likely I'll get a buy signal that's going to only pay 2 cents. Is that fair for me or not? So these are some of the intricate things that you will learn as you use an indicator for a long period of time because it'll give you the, like, this is, I keep going back to it. This is why we're so good. Like, simple, because I've been doing this for so long that a lot of this stuff took me a long time to like pull it out of the back of my head because right now it's just on autopilot, right? Because we use the same strategy, like I rarely even think about these little details, but they all go into effect, making you into a really, really good trader, right? Because you need to understand if a stock only, for instance, moves fives. Have you guys seen that, right? On Apple or like these bigger stocks, right? Like let's say, for instance, a stock that has a daily true range, right, of $5. Is that stock gonna randomly wake up one day and have a $400 move? Probably not. What is it likely to move the next day? Probably $4 or $5 if it only has a daily range of $4 or $5, right? Same thing with the options. If the option is only moving 5 cents, 10 cents up and down, right? And the signals aren't so good, what does that mean? That means that that option is locked in a range and it's probably going to stay the same until something crazy happens. And then, so you wait for a big signal to go up, okay? Then you wait for a pullback into sport, and you know that, well, the last 3 minute the move was 30 cents. The next, 3 minutes can be another 30 cents. Then you can buy at sport, right? So just remember, like, this is, we're talking a lot of detail. A lot of you guys might not kind of register this, and this is why we always say mentorship and watch these webinars recorded, guys. It'll change the way you trade because it's just like we really try to do a lot for the community, and some of you guys might not realize that, like, but it's there's a lot of value in this community. I'm going to be honest. And so the next one, this is the funny one, right? Because trend lines and patterns. Okay, how many of you guys, let me know, have seen people on Instagram, TikTok, right, talk about patterns don't work, right? The W pattern, the head and they don't work. The triangles don't work, right? It's bullshit. And I'll bet you right now, have that person, right? I'm willing to do this challenge. Let's put $50,000 on a bet and have them come trade next to me, and I'll only trade the patterns, and I'll bet you right now I'll 10x what they make in, a year. Whatever they're gonna make in a year, I'll make that in a day with using a pattern, right? Because a lot of people talk about triangles don't work. What is this, right? Triangle breakout. These options went from 43 cents all the way up to 150. Okay. That means that's 3x. So if you were to put in $10,000 here on this triangle break, you were to make almost $20,000 profit. And that's the same way if you were to put in 100K here, that's $300,000 out. This is how good patterns are. Don't listen to everything you see on Instagram. Do your due diligence, do your research. Patterns are there since hundreds of years. They work, right? And anybody that says it doesn't work is probably really stupid and is like just getting into trading, and they'll realize triangles work, wedges work, right? Everything works as long as you trade them the right way, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to take a short on a breakout on the upside and it's going to still work. No. Okay. And remember also, you need to also understand this one thing that, look, some people might call this a wedge breakout on here, right? Look at this pattern right here, right? This is a falling wedge, right? Look, you can say this is a falling wedge, and look at this pattern right here, right? Similar. To give you an idea also, look, what is this pattern? Falling wedge, right? What happens here? Explosion to the upside, right? What does this pattern say? Look, falling wedge, boom, explosion to the upside. Holy shit, patterns, I guess, do work if you know how to use them, right? And um, the same idea, like you need to understand that, look at this double bottom pattern, right? It's a double bottom pattern, or we call it the W pattern, right? Or this is the M pattern, right? Or the, inverse W pattern. Okay. Here in this wedge, you can also consider this a W pattern, just a little bit of a liquidity grab below the previous bottom, right? So you can look at patterns in different ways, but I promise you, it's much easier for you to understand these patterns and look at these patterns and register them in your head by looking at a chart and knowing that, okay, is this forming a symmetrical triangle? Yes. And remember, you need to know the ins and the outs of the triangle. What does it say here? It breaks the more near it breaks the triangle, the cleaner the signal. If it gives you a break here, more than likely it's going to go back and become choppy again. Why? This is a strategy that we teach. Okay. So you need to know the exact strategy you're learning, and you cannot just like say that, oh, I'm going to trade triangles from now on. Manny said it, and I'm going to be the best person, like trader ever. It doesn't work like that. You need to spend time on the strategy to learn the weaknesses and the goods, and you can turn honestly any trading strategy into a 90% or even 100% winning strategy. Again, I take that back. I don't think there's anything that can be 100% simply because of your mind. That's it. It's only your mind, but there are strategies that could be 100% if your mind didn't play games with you, right? Simple. So remember, patterns work, trend lines work. This is basically what I focus on. Like when I see a head and shoulder pattern, I always call it out, call it an inverse head and shoulder. These are the main ones I use: symmetrical triangle, head and shoulder patterns. I don't use wedges as much, but I use the, cup and handle patterns because, these are all similar to, the cup and handle pattern basically means that you're basically coming down and then now the trend is starting to change to the upside. You reject, right? And then it starts to curl again. So usually the cup and handle pattern, we always talk about it, is more of a curling pattern, and we always use it as like a curl pattern, right? But a lot of them just kind of come down to now, like how I look at it personally is this. I just pay attention to the 9 EMA on a bigger time frame. And as soon as the stock starts to kind of, respect the nine like this, there's an explosion coming on it. Simple. Like literally, that's an easy way of remembering all the patterns because they all end up exploding at a certain time, right? And usually, if you look at all of these patterns, what's happening when they're exploding? They're respecting the previous candle, right? Like look at this candle. It's a little bit higher than this one. Then this one doesn't go lower than the middle of the previous candle, right? So you can kind of, form these little, details in your head. And same thing. Use the strategy over and over again. Okay. So um then the most important one, I think this is the best one. Okay. Let me drink some water. Um, this is the best one, support and resistances. Okay. And fibs. So personally, I like to use fibs as my support and resistances. We have a custom fib that we have made that, has custom levels that gives you very, very good support and resistances. Okay. On the options and on the stock. Okay. We have this that basically like look at the way it's kind of sporting that fib, goes up, breaks this fib, comes back down, like after tagging the fib here, comes back down, sports, goes back up, rejects again. Where does it bounce again? From the zone. So like it it works really good because well, it's math. It's just like where algos are sitting to buy and sell, and this is why we use fibs as one of our support and resistance levels. Second one is the zone. Okay. Zone is basically accumulation of like where the previous, because remember, if we knew the exact level, right, where the option or the level was going to reject every single time, it was going to happen every single time, guess what? Then we would be so perfect traders that we would just make money every single time because we know we have marked out the levels. It's going to reject here for sure. Not going to happen. This is why you need to have a zone as well because you might come down, sport the zone, or worst case scenario, you might go back down to the fib and then pop back up. Because remember, the zone is being created from the previous high lows, and the fib is being created by math, right? So, as you can see, as a good example here, the stock comes down, respects the zone, and then goes back down, holds the fib and pops up. And then the second time it comes back down, it just holds the zone. It doesn't need to go back down to the fib. Why? Well, because that was the previous day's high, and that's where that zone was. And there was a lot of buyers willing to, just get in maybe 20 cents higher, from the fib. So you need to really kind of know, um, you know, what you're using and why you're using again. So remember, this is what I mean. Like these five things are gonna change your life. I'm telling you, as a trader, it's gonna change the way you trade if you just follow these five things because uh, every trader uses these five things, right? Literally, I don't think there's a trader out there that, can say that he has a strategy that doesn't include at least one of these things, right? So very important. And then, with us, we built something that literally makes you good at all five of those things in one algo. Like literally, it's stupidly insane. And I can't believe a lot of people, still haven't tried it out or used it. I'm gonna be honest, right? Um, and remember, it's the one-to-one. It's literally what I use every single day as well, right? Same thing. And the last one, the gap strategy, right? So there's two different types of gaps, guys. Remember, right? There is gaps on the daily where the stock or the option opens up higher or lower from the daily from previous day, right? That creates a gap. You can look at those gaps, but that's not our gap fill strategy. Our gap fill strategy works a little bit different, right? Our gap fill strategies gives us different gaps, right? That happen right throughout the day that can, honestly change the way we enter into a trade. Like we can catch trades like from 30 cents all the way up to $2 because we know that there is a first gap fill at 150 here, and then the second gap fill is at 215, right? So I don't need to take profit until at least 75 cents until we get into this gap because once we're close to this 50 EMA, I know for a fact we're going to hit this 50. And look at the way, if you guys can't see it, when you zoom into this candle, look, this candle rejected perfectly at 98 cents where the fib is. Okay? So this is why you got to use everything together. If you know you're going into a gap fill and you know 5 cents or 10 cents away, there's a 50 EMA, well, guess what? You can maybe wait 5, 10 cents because you know for sure over time, if you have seen this type of a trade, tens or, 20, 30, 40 times, you know for a fact that it has enough momentum to be able to go to the 50. Okay. If it breaks the 50, then it's going to go to the fib, right? And then what you can do is start taking maybe 20, like let's say you're trading 10 contracts. You can take two contracts off here, two here, and then, maybe wait or put the, the stop of the rest below at, below the nine, right? Because look, we didn't really go tag the nine until, once we crossed this and the 200 and then, or go to the gap, right? Because remember, like, let's say you put your stop and, you could have been fully out at $1. And let's say you put your stop below, the nine at like 50 cents. So you lost 50 cents here, but there's going to be a day where you put your stop below the nine and it just follows the nine and you just keep moving it up above or below the previous resistance, like this fib. Let's say you move the stop below this fib. There's going to be a one day where, on the play that you're holding, it's going to pay you $4, $5. So people saw that like this week. For some of you guys that held some of the options, you guys saw how options ended up paying 20, there was a option from QQQ that went from 40 cents to $8. And if you guys remember, uh, what did I say in the morning, right? If you guys go back in the chat, we leave these hints everywhere. QQQ options, right, expire every day, right? But remember, when the people or the option market makers are shorting options, they're usually doing what? Monthlies or weeklies, right? So they're doing Friday, right? Which is a month away Friday or a week away Friday. So those options usually have the most amount of volume. So on Friday afternoon, if there is any type of explosion, remember, some market maker is going to get squeezed, right? Remember the same idea. If somebody just keeps shorting this at 20 cents and these options have been getting beaten up from $20 down to 20 cents, they might just pull back to $2 before they go back down to zero, right? So remember, that's why Fridays are more crazy. So you need to understand the options as well. You need to know which days might make me 10x, 20x, which days can I hold longer, which days, which options can I hold for a little bit more, right? You know what I mean? And which option should I trade? Should I trade the like the the whole number options or the half dollar options? Okay. So let me know now if you guys have any questions. I'll let you guys get into the trial right very soon because we'll talk about that. But let me know now. We're gonna go over questions until about, we have till about 9, but we can go over the questions. So let me see if I can go back. Okay, on the boom trades, do you look at the, no, we already answered that. Yeah, so Brad, we only trade two trades, man. We don't trade more than two trades. So like it's usually, so remember guys, also one thing I want to make sure that you guys understand, me and Nick don't trade take Raj's trades and Raj usually doesn't take our trades, okay? And remember, if you are taking two different types of trades where you're trading the weekly options with Raj, you need to understand the best way to do it is opening another account and only taking the weekly options. Do not take the trades that we take, right, in the same account because remember on Nvidia you have a whole week, right? So 20% on those weekly options might mean like 100% on a Friday, right? So you need to understand that mentality, and this is why you should have another account to trade different type of trading. So with me and Nick, we take one trade in the morning, one in the afternoon. Sometimes we don't take a trade in the afternoon. Remember, if we can save money and not lose money that day and the stock market's being choppy, I don't think anybody's complaining if you're making money. And remember, the averages that we get, guys, like look, all of our trades from Monday to Friday this week, right? I believe, except that one loser, went up at least 100%. So if you can just manage to get 30 to 40%